Welcome to the Lead Well podcast. Around here, we believe leadership shouldn't cost you your peace, your well-being, or the parts of yourself you've worked so hard to reclaim. I'm your host, Trasetta Washington, leadership wellness coach and strategist. And my mission is to give you practical, actionable steps to reduce overwhelm, lead more effectively, and build a sustainable rhythm for both your team and your life. Let's go ahead and dive into today's conversation. Hey leaders, welcome back to the Lead Well podcast. Today, I want to share with you a little bit more of my own story, not the highlight reel version, but the through line that explains why I do this work the way that I do and why leadership wellness really matters now more than ever. Because I'm going to be honest with you, I didn't set out to become a leadership wellness coach. I became one because of what I live, what I've witnessed, and what I couldn't unsee once I noticed it. So my work began inside of organizations, inside of systems that were built around service, outcomes, and responsibility. Places where mission mattered very deeply and the people carrying it mattered too, even if that wasn't always reflected in kind of how work was structured. I was close enough to leadership and even inside of leadership myself to see and experience the pressure. I was in the trenches where I could see the impact that pressure had on teams as well. And so early in my career, I was trusted with responsibility pretty quickly. I led teams, managed complex projects, I made decisions that mattered. And on the surface, things worked, right? But underneath, I was learning leadership through experience, not through theory. And I learned what it feels like to carry expectations that don't ever clock out. I know what it's like to be the capable one, to be relied on, depended on, and expected to hold all the things together. And everywhere I went, I saw the same patterns. Strong leaders who cared really deeply, but were stretched thin. Teams struggling, not because they lacked skill, but because there just wasn't the clarity present that they needed in order to be effective. Burnout that didn't show up in dramatic ways, but it quietly permeated throughout the leadership and team through exhaustion, frustration, and even disconnection. I noticed people started leaving, and they weren't leaving because they didn't care about the mission. It wasn't because they didn't enjoy the work that they did. They left because carrying just was costing them way too much. And listen, I left places because the sacrifices that I was making for the mission just didn't make sense for me any longer. So for a long time, leadership development focused on strategy, it focused on systems and skills, and all those things do matter. But I started to notice something really important. Even the best strategies will fall apart if the leader is depleted. There is no process that will work when capacity is gone. It's disappeared. No system can compensate for exhaustion. Leaders, including myself, we didn't just need better tools. What we needed was the support for how leadership was manifesting inside of us. And so that is when the work that I do began to shift. A lot of the frameworks that I use today, I didn't create them in isolation, right? They weren't based off of theory. I didn't go read a book to create them. I created these frameworks out of my lived experience. And if I'm honest, they came out of lived pressure from asking myself, like what actually helps when leadership feels too heavy, when it feels overwhelming. And so everything that I teach is something that I personally have had to practice. Everything I support leaders with is something that I have personally navigated. And one of the first things that leaders start to lose under pressure is themselves. They start to lose their identity. And it's not something that happens all at once. It's a very slow chipping away of their identity. Their presence starts to fade. Their joy becomes more and more narrow. Leadership becomes something that you do, not necessarily something that you embody. And when leaders disconnect from themselves, the team will feel it. And it doesn't matter if anyone says anything about it or not, the team is still going to feel it. They're going to pick up on that shift in energy. And so I have to say that it is not indulgent for you to connect to yourself as a leader. It is something that is actually foundational. And most leadership programs focus on what leaders should be doing, right? Like what they should do. But very few address how leaders are while doing that or doing it. That's why I created my Align to Lead coaching program, because I recognize that you have to reconnect with who you are and who you are as an individual and how you want to show up as a leader before you can actually really lead well, because there's this misalignment that's there, but I'm getting ahead of myself. I'll talk more about Align to Lead at a later time. That's not what today's show is about. These programs, leadership programs that are out there, treat wellness as something that is very personal, that it's separate from leadership, that it's separate from your professional self or your professional life, that it's something that's optional. But leadership doesn't work that way. The internal experience of leadership shapes everything else that you do. Productivity without wellness leads to burnout. Wellness without structure creates frustration. And inside of team dynamics, that's where both of those are tested, productivity and wellness. And the work that I do lives essentially at the intersection of those two. It's where clarity, capacity, and connection meet. I work with leaders who care very deeply about the work that they do. They are mission driven. They also carry a lot, and often quietly. They don't necessarily say anything to other people about what they're carrying. They don't want to feel ungrateful. There's a lot of guilt that is present there. But they don't want to stop leading. They just want to lead without losing themselves in the process. And I love this because when leaders are aligned with their identity as an individual, they make clearer decisions. They create an atmosphere of steadiness instead of this urgency, this survival mode that I've seen time and time again inside of organizations. And not only that, teams respond to a leader who is able to make those clear decisions, a leader who is able to lead from a place of steadiness. The culture within your team or your organization is not going to shift just because you came up with a fancy slogan. Changing your slogan, changing your motto, or coming up with some, theme for the year or for the next few years, that's not going to shift your culture. Your culture shifts because how you show up as a leader. And in today's workplace, leadership pressure is not easing up. Actually, it's increasing. Teams are asking for more humanity, more clarity, more trust. So sustainability is no longer optional. It is your responsibility as a leader. And that's part of why this podcast exists. The Lead Well podcast is an extension of this work that I do. And it's a space for us to be able to talk honestly about leadership, capacity, and well-being. It's a place to remind leaders that effectiveness and wellness don't have to compete with one another. You can lead well and you can be well while you lead. So if my story resonated with you or anything that I said today resonated with you, I want you to know that you're not alone and you don't have to figure all this out by yourself. If you want some support in leading with clarity, alignment, and sustainability, then I want to invite you to join me inside of the Lead Well Academy. It's a space created for leaders just like you. You can find the link inside of the show notes. It's totally free to join. Take a look whenever it feels aligned. And as always, thank you. Thank you for being here. And thank you for choosing to lead well. Until next time, lead well and live well.